Sorry, Mr. Speaker. Every time I meet with a Liberal, I have to check for my wallet.
Just when you thought things couldn't heat up anymore. Welcome back to Moose on Loose. My name's David, and today's top stories. We've got Pierre Poilievre wasn't allowed to be a part of question period today. Samidoun, Hezbollah, Hamas supporters in the streets of Vancouver declaring war on Canadians. Let's just call it what it is. They're calling for death to Canadians. They're chanting it. They're out of control. The government is out of control, and the police are doing nothing. First off, yesterday, Pierre Poilievre was saying that Melanie Joly, Justin Trudeau's Minister of Foreign Affairs, wasn't condemning these groups for what they're saying in the streets. They hadn't even said this yet. They hadn't said death to Canada. This happened after. But they're, everything they said, calling for the extermination of Jewish people in Canada, terrorizing these people, going to their schools, harassing people, all this stuff. Pierre said Melanie Joly is not condemning these groups. She needs to stand up. She needs to say something. Today, Pierre Poilievre had a press conference in the morning. He said the same thing. He's out in the hallway before question period. Then the speaker, Greg Fergus, switched with the female House Speaker and basically then told Pierre Poilievre that he needs to apologize or he's not allowed to come back in. And he didn't apologize, so he didn't allow him to come back in. So he will be back tomorrow, but he's not here for this question period. It's a Tuesday one. So let's start here. So this is what happened after question period. Got these Hamas, Hezbollah, Samidoun supporters here. This is the public library in downtown Vancouver. This is downtown Vancouver, and listen to what she has to say.
Do not wonder how revolution could possibly be done. Men who have never known a free day, who have lived their entire lives under the thumb of one of the most powerful settler colonies in the world, built paragliders to fly over a wall so high that it blocked out the sun when you stood underneath it.
Okay.
Do not wonder how revolution can be done. We must do it. Death to Canada.
I'm sorry, did you just say death to Canada while standing on the streets of the Vancouver Public Library?
Death to the United States and death to Israel.
This other clip says it all.
We are Hezbollah and we are Hamas.
Yeah, you just admitted to being a terrorist organization organizing in downtown Vancouver, calling for the death of Canadians and death of Canada. I'm sorry, if this doesn't get dealt with by the police...
Israel, burn, burn! Israel, burn, burn! Palestinians will return!
Look at these mass traitors filling the streets, the cops doing nothing. Okay, there's no such thing as T-word supporters. Either you're a T-word person or you're not. Yeah, that's basically it. I've been very nice with my coverage of this for the past year, but like this is it. Saying death to Canada's act of war. With this, Pierre Poilievre had a speech this morning. He said more of just what I put in my last video. He had a speech last night at that banquet event. We can't have this stuff happening in our streets. She's not calling it out. She's not condemning it.
Is again any form of anti-Semitism. And we know that there's been a rise of anti-Semitism across this country. It has worsened since October 7th. We've heard from the Jewish community from coast to coast to coast how much this was a problem. And we need to continue to fight every day, working with mayors across the country.
No, you're not doing anything. You know it too. That's why Poilievre calls you out. And then Fergus being corrupt didn't allow him into question period. Jumping ahead here in her speech, though, I just want to point something she said here.
Well, he's saying that he's fighting anti-Semitism. He never condemned those who were waving a Nazi flag during the Freedom Convoy on this Parliament Hill.
I'm sorry, weren't you guys the ones who brought in one of those Yahtzee characters, saluted and gave tribute to in the House of Commons? Isn't that what happened? There was quite literally one or two people that were walking around with one of those flags. They were there, then they were gone. Like, you didn't see them again. They weren't a part of the entire Freedom Convoy thing. They weren't a part of that group. She brings this up. It's ridiculous.
Why didn't he? Second, he cozies up to groups like Diagolon, who spread neo-fascist ideology across this country.
Okay, Diagon are like 4 or 5 dudes who are on stream playing Xbox. and just cursing and being lewd and crude. That's Diagolon. It's not hundreds of people at the public library in the middle of downtown Vancouver calling for death to Canada. What do you even say to anymore to these people?
Why does he denounce their anti-Semitism as well?
Not only showed you guys a few clips, so there's a bunch of them. So this guy's gonna light a Canadian flag on fire with police right here. Like, are you kidding me? Now burn the LGBT flag and make a bet how much time you'll spend in jail cell. Yeah. So I can't play this one, but you've basically got this word up here. They're using smoke to disperse people now in Montreal. I click a few times, you can see there's some there that people are getting out. People are moving. So Montreal, I guess, is amping things up a bit. We've also got an Israeli flag being burned here. What happened to our country? Out of all the situation in Vancouver, though, the police did go after one guy. It was the guy here with a handmade sign that said F Hamas. That's who they went after. I'm not even joking. Look, 4 police officers because this guy's got this sign. Apologize for the swear on there, but... This is so stupid. The police across this country, the RCMP, you guys better take your stuff serious here, or you're about to end up with a much bigger problem on your hands. I'm telling you right now, this is not going to slide with Canadian people. So jumping over to the House Commons here, things are spicy here in question period, even though Pierre isn't in this one.
Liberal scandal has paralyzed Parliament for a week. Mr. Speaker, you yourself ruled that the NDP Liberals have violated a House order to turn over evidence to the police for a criminal investigation into their corruption. They are defying your ruling, and they have grinded this place to a halt. The auditor said that there's $400 million tax dollars and 186 conflicts of interest in questions. Canadians can get accountability today if they hand over the documents to the police. So what's in those documents, and how bad is it?
Exactly. Yeah.
Mr. Speaker, I want to start by noting the events in Vancouver yesterday at a protest.
Notice this. This is what he's going to talk about, what I just showed you. She just talked about SDTC scandal, and he goes to this. He's not answering the question. He wants to address this because they know how bad this is. Not to mention David Eby, loser David Eby, who's campaigning right now. No tweets, no mentions of it. This is in his province. He's done nothing. All these leaders are a bunch of losers.
We unequivocally condemn those events and those actions. It is absolutely unacceptable to burn the Canadian flag and to chant death to Canada. It is also unacceptable.
That's punishable by years in jail, not unacceptable.
To deny and celebrate the events of October 7th and to champion the acts of a terrorist group. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member from Thornhill.
Glad that they found the courage to condemn something in this House, but whatever is in those documents, back to the matter at hand that I asked about, must be really bad if they're willing to hide the corruption. Months ago, the Auditor General found that the Liberal appointees gave nearly $400 million tax dollars to their own companies, 186 conflict of interest. I'll ask again for the 7th day in a row, will the NDP Liberals end the cover-up, give proof to the police so we can get accountability for the corruption and get Parliament back to work?
Mr. Speaker, I think it's important I read your ruling into the record because the Conservatives didn't hear it the first time. The Chair, that's you, Mr. Speaker, is of the view that it would be valuable to afford an opportunity for the concerns expressed by the RCMP as well as by the Auditor General to be addressed fully, and I would hope for a mutually satisfactory solution to be arrived at. I believe the best way for this to be achieved would be to follow the usual course for a prima facie question of privilege, that is a referral to the Standing Committee on Procedure and House Affairs. We're ready to send this matter to committee. When will the Conservatives do that?
They got something nasty to hide. Like,
Mr. Speaker, the House Leader missed the part where you told them that they're holding this House in contempt. If there is nothing to hide in those documents, then they should be able to hand them over. $400 million to Liberal friends, 186 conflicts of interest from a government that knows really well what a conflict of interest is, all while a record number of Canadians can't afford to eat. How bad are these documents that they would hold this place up for 7 days, defying your order, and to hide the $400 million that they gave to their friends?
Mr. Speaker, we're ready for this matter to move on to the Procedure and House Affairs Committee, just as you ruled.
No, this needs to go to RCMP and put you in jail where you belong along with all the other Liberals.
Only party that doesn't want that to happen are the Conservatives. They're trying to spin out of their own obstruction because they don't want this to go to committee, because what they will hear is expert after expert talking about the egregious abuse of power that the
No, egregious use of power. You're gaslighting losers. You're screwing Canadians over. We've had enough, you guys.
Conservatives are trying to do in this place to override the rights of Canadians. We're ready to move forward, Mr. Speaker. It's only the Conservatives that are afraid of a vote. Thank you.
The Liberal government is violating a parliamentary order to hand over evidence to the RCMP. At issue is the Auditor General's findings that officials at SDTC broke conflict of interest laws 186 times and funneled $400 million of taxpayers' money into their own companies. All this at a time when Canadians can barely afford to eat or heat and house themselves. Now, by refusing to accept your ruling, they have effectively paralyzed Parliament, pushing aside all other work to address the housing crisis, the inflation crisis, and the crime crisis this government unleashed. Why not end the cover-up, hold the lawbreakers to account, and let Parliament get back to work?
False, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, that member sat in your chair at one point, and I think he would have an interesting perspective if the opposition was not following his ruling as he is doing. I quote, and I repeat, what you said, Mr. Speaker, is I believe the best way for this to be achieved would be to follow the usual course of a prima facie question of privilege, that is, a referral to the Standing Committee on Procedure and House Affairs. The government is willing to do that. We're willing to vote in favour of it. The only party that is holding Parliament up are the Conservatives because they don't want the truth out there. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
No, you guys don't want the truth out there. That's why you won't hand over those documents.
If she scrolled up just a little bit more on your ruling on the website, Mr. Speaker, she would see where you ruled that withholding evidence after a parliamentary production order is a contempt of Parliament, Mr. Speaker. We're talking about Liberal insiders funneling cash into their own pockets. Why don't they want to get to the bottom of this?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm not even sure the House Leader of the Opposition believes his own spin. Like, he could scroll down a little bit and see what you asked of him, which was to prepare a motion that you said you would accept to send it to committee to be studied. Mr. Speaker, we welcome that. We will get this.
You're the biggest liar in this room right now. Like, let's get real. Nobody believes you. That's why you're going to lose your seat.
The response from the government to a parliamentary order to produce the documents is, first of all, to break the order so that they can bury it at committee, while Conservatives want to make sure that this corruption, this scandal, sees the full daylight that it's deserved, and a referral to Canada's Royal Canadian Mounted Police so they can decide to take a criminal investigation. Oh, wait, we've learned that they are already investigating the latest corruption with these Liberals. Will they turn over the documents today?
Mr. Speaker, let's get this out of the House. Let's get it to committee so that we can get back to the important work of serving Canadians.
No, that's a desperate attempt to not get put in jail. Let's be real.
She says she wants to get it out of the House. She wants to get it out of the sunlight, the daylight. They want to bury it at committee. They don't want Canadians to know about the latest example of Liberal corruption. We see that conflicts of interest are very common over there. That Prime Minister broke the law twice. The Public Safety Minister broke the law. The Trade Minister broke the law. The Liberal appointed chair of this Green Slush Fund broke the law. Every time these Liberals get a chance, they enrich their friends. They want to hide it from Canadians. Conservatives want to get the truth. We want to get accountability. And we want Parliament to be able to get back to work for Canadians. Will they turn over the documents today?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. We already have the bloc, but now we learn we have the blocker-in-chief, the Conservative, Mr. Speaker. How ridiculous for Canadians watching at home. They are blocking their own motion, Mr. Speaker. Can you imagine that? The Conservative are blocking their own motion. Mr. Speaker, we know the Conservative know how to count to 6, so let me explain to them. There's not been one report. There's not been 2 reports. There's not been 3 reports. There's been 4 independent reports, Mr. Speaker, to go to the bottom of this, Mr. Speaker. We got to the bottom of this. Let's get back to work and expect better from all of us.
He is so pompous and arrogant. Every one of these people, they just found the worst of the worst people and brought them in here. Next up, we got Rick Perkins here with a real zinger.
Sorry, Mr. Speaker. Every time I meet with a Liberal, I have to check for my wallet. And they just took $400 million of taxpayer money and funneled it to Liberals in the Green slush fund. Why are they ignoring an order of this House? Why are they preventing us from getting to the business of the House, since they won't turn over the documents to the RCMP? If the Prime Minister won't end the cover-up, will at least call a carbon tax election so Canadians can get the green slush fund money back?
Mr. Speaker, every time I meet a Conservative, I have to search for some semblance of reason. When we talk about what's going on here, let's think about why your ruling said send it back to the committees, Mr. Speaker. Your ruling said that because this has never been done. Because you know what happens normally when you ask for documents in your law enforcement? You go to a court of law. You don't go into a partisan arena such as the House of Commons, because a court of law, a judge weighs things called charter interests, like your expectation of privacy, like your right to be free from unreasonable search and seizure. Those are important considerations. We will stand by them every time.
The reason why is they're going to bury this. That's why they don't want it coming out. They've obviously got some massive things to hide in there beyond just 186 conflicts of interest.
Mr. Speaker, the latest $400 million scandal from this Liberal government has paralyzed Parliament. It begs the question, how damning is that evidence that they have grounded Parliament to a halt simply to hide the truth from Canadians? Good question.
That is the real $1 million question here.
The Honourable Minister of
$400 million question.
Mr. Speaker, I enjoy the interventions from the member opposite, but I also appreciate his experience as a former Crown prosecutor. He used to work closely with the police. And what he would recollect from his past career is that those police operate independently from him as a former Crown, and certainly independently from politicians. Why do they do that, Mr. Speaker? So that we can have confidence in our institutions in this country. You know who doesn't have confidence? People that live under authoritarian regimes. Instead of emulating authoritarianism, how about you join this side and learn how to fight against it?
This is so rich, man.
Mr. Speaker, your ruling was clear to send this matter to committee for further study.
There needs to be no study. You guys need jail. That's it. And finally, we got one last clip here I want to share.
St. Paul's.
Mr. Speaker, in March of this year, Simieritsch paraded through my riding to intimidate our Jewish community. Now we see videos of Simieritsch members in our streets calling for the death of Canada. Long live October 7th, and calling the Hamas terrorists their heroes while they burn the Canadian flag. This government has done nothing to put a stop to these pro-genocide, anti-Semitic, anti-Canadian mobs who threaten our Jewish communities nationwide. Will the Prime Minister commit to protecting our Jewish communities and label Simieritsch a terrorist organization?
So I've got a clip on this. So first off, I'm not going to play the audio on this one. This is in New York City, but I mean, these groups are all the same. I mean, somebody drives by and now there's like 25 people harassing them. Like, what is this? We got this clip here. Todd Richmond, head of Democratic Majority of Israel, was physically powed by these Hamas people. So I'm going to just take out some of the audio a bit here. You can see they try to steal his flag. Things start to heat up a little bit. We're just going to jump ahead a little bit. So they get pretty heated. You can see he's getting swarmed. I can't play this, but you can see here, this mob, this Jewish man. I can't play these kind of videos, but you can see he's not in a good place because there's a bunch of these monsters around him. And after it's all said and done, you can see what's going on here. Only after he's battered and covered in red do these police show up to help this guy. Well, they're not friendly. They're not here to be part of our nation. Enough's enough.
If they took action, they would have listed them already. So if burning a Canadian flag, if calling for the death of Canadians, if fomenting hate in this country, and most of all being a front for an already listed terrorist organization is not enough to put them on the list, then what the hell is it going to take for them to ban them?
Yeah! Mr. Speaker, when it comes to an issue as serious as this, we are not going to play politics with Canadian safety. But when it comes to listing of terrorist entities, the members opposite know full well it is not a political decision. It is based on the national security services of this country, but it's precisely why the minister had already sent it.
This is just a load of crap. I mean, look in the streets. I showed last episode, her seat's gone. It's going to turn conservative. She's going to be out soon. So I got a clip here from a couple days ago. This is from October 7th. And this is when all the Palestinians were grouping up here to have their protest on Parliament Hill. And the cops here don't allow people in unless they declare their allegiance to Palestine, show their support, and declare Palestine a state.
You are not a supporter of Palestine. You are not permitted on... Yeah, that was before you admitted being against this cause.
He never said he was against this cause.
Yeah, he did. He said he's not a supporter of Palestine and doesn't recognize Palestine as a state.
I didn't say that.
Well, do we want to rewind the video and see?
Well,
this is not good, man. You're doing a bad job as a police officer. You should be fired for this. Canada's a free country. These guys weren't there to wreak havoc. They're basically reporting on this stuff.
there's no audio.
Oh, well, that's unfortunate. But no.
Well,
So you said it.
camera,
So you said it to me. My colleague understood.
Yeah, I said I don't
clearly.
accept Palestine as a state. That doesn't mean I'm anti-Palestinian people.
You don't recognize. And you said you don't support Palestine. Okay?
I don't recognize Palestine as a
You
state.
said if
he took the shoot. Told me.
So they go back and forth here for like 5 or 6, 7, 8 minutes. It's not worth watching the whole thing, but basically these cops won't let people in unless they declare their allegiance. Maybe they should go do their jobs and start arresting people calling for the death of Canada, huh? This makes me seriously question the independence of the police. The foundation of law in our democracy. Picking sides while being paid by the people will not end well, folks. Canada is on the brink right now. You can't have what happened in Vancouver there be swept under the rug. That woman needs to be caught and put into jail. There needs to be some consequences to actions. Otherwise, what is the precedence that's being set right now? You got Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister and his party caught with 186 conflicts of interest, $400 million funneled into their own companies. We've got people calling for the death of Canada. If these Hamas and Hezbollah members think they can just run their mouths in the middle of downtown Vancouver, the RCMP need to take this serious. They need to do something about it now, or we're going to see the end of democracy.